17 days ago was my last day of high school. That's not too special because 17 days ago was the last day for every other senior at my high school. The special part is that I'm only 15, but I'm done. I've graduated public high school 3 years ahead of the kids my age, so I must be pretty special, right? Maybe I'm part of some secret society. Well, yes, I am astonishingly unique, just like everyone else. What I mean to say is that you can do it too, and I'd love to provide you with the necessary tools to embark on this journey. The journey of beginning to take control of your ambitions and your education, but more importantly, to stop letting your age hold you back. We often allow our age to hold us back, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. Society tends to impose restrictions upon us because of our age. Take school, for example. I recently graduated. Now, according to society, I should have just finished my freshman year of high school. However, I had a goal, and I didn't allow my age to hold me back. And so I was able to take control of my ambitions and my education, despite my young age. While my chronological age is 15, I'd like to think my mental age and emotional intelligence is closer to that of an 18-year-old's. Chronological age, which is simply the years since you popped out of your mom's womb, is generally what we use to measure most things in our lives. Mental age is defined by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary as a measure used in psychological testing that expresses an individual's mental attainment in terms of the number of years it takes an average child to reach that same level. And now we have something very important, emotional intelligence, which has to do with our maturity or emotional state at a given age in comparison with others of that same age. Say there's an 8-year-old with the emotional intelligence and mental age of the average 10-year-old. Should they be subjected to learning like an 8-year-old, which would, without a doubt, be holding them back? We use chronological age as our metric so frequently, and I think it's time we can start using emotional intelligence and mental age as well. Obviously, there are many situations in which it makes total sense to use our chronological age as our metric, such as with child labor laws. Now, I'd like to tell a story that has a lesson, but also proves I'm really not that special. I'm a normal kid. I love martial arts. I've been doing it for nearly 10 years. In particular, I love dragon-style kung fu. And we all know that dragons breathe fire. Somehow, I got the idea to breathe a little bit of fire before my performances at outdoor shows. It was a fairly modest concept, but this became fixated in my mind. I knew that I had to try it. So I watched a few how-to videos, and I was fairly certain nothing could go wrong. The next morning, I gathered my materials, some camping fuel, a little cloth torch I had made, and a lighter. And the first 2 attempts worked, and honestly, they were pretty magnificent. But I had to try a third time, and so I exhaled the fuel, creating this big ball of fire, just as the wind kicked up and the fire flew right back towards me. With my head literally engulfed in flames, I dove into the snow next to me. This was mid-February of last year. Hopefully, by now you've realized I'm not a genius or child prodigy of any sort. I'm a run-of-the-mill 15-year-old kid, and clearly I've done some pretty stupid stuff. But I'd like to make a point that with everything in life, there are logical consequences. The logical consequence of me attempting to breathe fire was having to go to school with my face looking like Darth Vader's, except I didn't have a cool helmet or a menacing voice to cover it up. And that was a pretty bad consequence for a 14-year-old kid. But there are also consequences, logical consequences, for our inactions, not just our actions. Our inaction towards our goals at a young age can result in us giving up those big dreams we had when we were young. Our inaction to take control of our lives and our educations at a young age can result in a lack of happiness later in life. So obviously, our poor choices and actions have logical consequences as well, such as having to go to school with Darth Vader face after attempting to breathe fire, which didn't work so well. But we need to stop being pushed around as teens and start taking control of our lives. Everyone speaking today has done this to a magnificent extent, but most people our age have not. They have goals but don't take action towards them because of their age. And this is what I'd like to change. Everyone needs to stop allowing their age to hold them back and start taking control of their lives and their ambitions and their education. I know this is sort of a cliche, but we as teens are the future. And I believe one of the largest ways we allow our age to hold us back is in our goals and ambitions. I've always been a very goal-oriented person, and thus I've always had things to work on. Over the course of last summer, a group of friends and I had a goal to create a successful company in the technology field. We spent hours researching and designing products on CAD programs and planning out our business, and we didn't have any money, and so the whole thing totally failed. But we learned a lot from trying to pursue that goal. And with goals come tasks. And if you don't have goals or don't focus on them, you won't have productive things to do. As teens and young people, we tend not to focus on our goals and ambitions as much as we ought to, and thus we fall into unproductive habits, like binge watching The Office, even if it's addictive and very entertaining. A huge issue with teenage society is our lack of motivation towards what truly matters. So if you have a goal, no matter how big, start working towards it right now. We like to wait to put things off until we're finished with our education, or we create some other excuse that ends up holding us back in the long run. So don't allow your age to hold you back. Now, I believe the largest way we allow our age to hold us back is in our education. We are taught that in order to be successful, we have to go through school at a normal pace, taking normal classes and getting straight A's. Well, I guess getting good grades probably isn't that bad. I suppose it's not the end of the world. But the school system creates a path for us, instead of allowing us to take control of our education and shape it towards our needs. A study by the Washington Post showed that nearly 1/3 of all college graduates aren't working in a field directly related to their major. And I believe this is largely due to the fact that we go straight from high school to college. We don't have a chance to experience the field we're interested in. Some people will take a gap year, but this could put you in a position where you're graduating college a year later than you should. The solution is graduating early, or at least taking control of your education instead of just going with the flow. The public school system now operates like a conveyor belt. Students are sent in for kindergarten, and they come out 13 years later with a relatively similar experience and a very similar education. Like so many teens and young people, we don't take a stand, or we don't try to take control of our lives. We assume that the time for action is later, once we're finished with our education. I think we've all heard the old saying. I think it goes something like this. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. So yeah, I started to get ahead when I was in 3rd grade, but that doesn't mean you can't start right now. As teens, we need to be more focused on shaping our education towards our needs. There's no point in wasting a 4th year in high school if you don't really need it. The public school, there's not like a secret society of public school kids that are able to graduate early. Anyone can do it. And it's not even that challenging, but it does take a lot of work. Many of you probably didn't even realize you had the option to graduate early or even take control of your education. Public schools don't advertise this life-changing opportunity. You'll have to fight for it and figure it out on your own. But if you do it, if you're able to reshape and redefine your education, it will change your life. Now I'd like to share with you how I was able to pull this off, how I was able to graduate 3 years early. So for the first 3 years actually of my education, kindergarten through 2nd grade, I went to a private school, and then I started cyber school. Basically, I'd do my coursework as fast as I could so that I finished my 3rd grade work halfway through the year, and then I requested my 4th grade work. And I did that and finished that by the end of the year. I continued this until I finished my 8th grade work when I was 12. At this point, I was 2 years ahead. The next year, I joined public school at the age of 12, and I was in 9th grade. That was interesting because it was my first experience in a real public school. I actually had a lot of kids think that somehow I ended up in the wrong school because of how little I was. It's not often you have a 4'10", 12-year-old freshman with a lot of baby fat join your high school. Somewhere during sophomore year, I was having a meeting with one of my best teachers, and she told me I had the opportunity to graduate yet another year earlier, and I was 100% on board. This meant I would need to take 9 credits the next year, but I really wanted to take these 2 half-year engineering courses, and so it ended up being 10 credits. So I had a very packed schedule, but I was able to graduate 3 years early. I ended up having to take a 12-week course at a local community college, as well as 2 other out-of-school courses. But I couldn't be happier with my situation, and I want to share with all of you how it's possible. Now, I'd like to share with you what you need to do this. First, you need a purpose. If you don't have a purpose for graduating early, don't do it. I knew that I wanted a year or 2 to pursue my goals and try and start my own company. And I knew this is what I wanted to do, and the best way to do it was to graduate early, or at least the best way to give myself that opportunity was to graduate early. And so, don't worry, there's going to be a lot of people, if you decide to do this, that will tell you you're doing the wrong thing, or that you're going to lose focus and turn into a failure, and I'm 100% serious. It's happened many times before. But you have to realize not to take that stuff too seriously. Listen to it and try and avoid those pitfalls, but don't get hung up on it. Next, you need to realize that you're going to have to make sacrifices. I had to spend nearly 4.5 hours every Saturday for 12 weeks going to this community college, taking my 3-hour course, and then going back home. So be prepared for those sacrifices, but with sacrifices come rewards, and there's going to be a lot of rewards in the future for you if you choose to make sacrifices. And I don't want to waste my time speaking in platitudes, so I'll try and make this short and simple. You really do need motivation and optimism, persistence and dedication, all that good stuff. I know it's sort of dull and cliche, but it actually is very important. You also need allies. A teacher or two that like you and are willing to fight for you will make a huge difference when trying to deal with the school board. Your parents can talk you up all day long, but teachers will make a difference. Of course, it's good to have a parent on your side too, a parent who's willing to help you and get you where you need to go. For me, this was my dad. He was always there to help me and fight for me. Another great thing to have is a group of friends who support what you're doing. But more than anything else, you need yourself. If you don't really want it, you won't be able to pull it off. If you don't really want it, don't do it. It's not for everyone. So don't allow your age to hold you back, not in your ambitions, not in your education, not in your life in general. Own your ambitions, own your education, but more importantly, own your life. Thank you.